Shannon Stecher is a visiting artist and scholar at the American Academy in Rome. She began a year-long sabbatical this past November from the Exhibitions and Publications program at the Harvard University Graduate School of Design after almost a decade of work. She's no stranger to Italy and Rome. She had an internship at the Guggenheim, we call it affectionately, the Guggenheim Museum in Venice, and then thereafter worked at the U.S. Pavilion at the Venice Biennale.
The purpose of my presentation today is to show how QR codes are currently being used in institutions, galleries, museums, and by individuals to disseminate information, and how unlisted participants might utilize this method, and also some alternatives that are being developed for the future. So, what are QR codes, and where can you get one? A QR code is abbreviated from Quick Response Code, and it's the trademark for a type of matrix barcode or two-dimensional code that was first designed for the automotive industry in 1994. It was a South Korean manufacturer called DensoWave who designed the code, and it consists of black modules arranged in a square pattern on a white background like what you see on the screen there. Basically, a QR code is a quick, easy way to redirect someone to a website, and all the user needs is to download any of the readily available apps on their iPhone, iPad, Android, and it really can be used on almost any mobile device with a camera. And so you take a picture of the code, and they're automatically redirected to the desired page. So it can also, the QR codes can also initiate a phone call, send a text message, fire off an email, open up a Google map, or even download contact information into an address book. And a list of QR code generators and readers will be available through the AIRC blog that I'll give to Dar later on. So these are some of the requirements to make sure that your mobile barcode will work effectively. These are recommendations by Enigma, which is one of the QR code generators and readers that you can find online. And so the barcode size, there's one thing up there that's not entirely correct, and it's the scanning distance. You can be 50 feet away as long as your camera can capture that, the little square. But everything else, it does have to be at least 2 centimeters by 2 centimeters. There should be white space around the outside. And you can print them on a number of different surfaces. And some people have gotten a little creative with what they've done. You can see on the bottom row there's some animated figures and some color. But in general, it's best to just keep it black and white unless you have a good designer. So the most likely place that you've seen QR codes so far is in advertising, in magazines, on buses, banks, stores. They're becoming ubiquitous. It's an easy way to pass along a lot of information. And you might think an inevitable question is, but can't somebody just paste over it with another code and redirect it to another site? And yes, that can happen, but it hasn't been reported as much as you might assume. These are, there are many different uses for QR codes on business cards, t-shirts. There's a Flickr page dedicated to QR codes in the wild, and these are some of the examples there. There are over 1,000 different examples on that site. This example was interesting to stumble across because, partly because it was posted on a site called Graffiti Archaeology News. And it had a lot of hits when I typed in archaeology and QR codes. In any case, it's a mural in Vancouver, British Columbia, and it provides a good example of inspired use of QR codes. So after the mural was tagged with a big red anarchy symbol, somebody went over the tag with a giant QR code, apparently painted by hand, and this code leads back to the original mural. The next few slides are about QR codes in more controlled settings like galleries and museums. And this is a very brief list of galleries, museums, and institutions using QR codes in exhibitions. And information dissemination. It's been embraced by a lot of institutions, too many to list in a viewable format on the screen. But here in Italy, the city of Bologna has launched a full-on QR code campaign, and they're being used in Bologna's Museum of Archaeology, the Collezione Comunale d'Arte, and the Museo Civico del Risorgimento. And in the coming months, the service will be extended to other public museums in Bologna, including historic buildings, churches, and monuments, and all are tagged with QR codes that can be linked together to create special themed walks around the city. So this is from an exhibition last year at the Graduate School of Design at Harvard, where we highlighted the work of an Amsterdam-based firm called Unstudio. I like to think we took the design a bit farther to incorporate the QR codes into the exhibition. What you're seeing are anamorphic rooms. It's basically a graphic distortion that can be read when you stand in a particular spot. However, when you're walking through, it appears that the images perhaps don't make sense or are just graphic surfaces, but in fact, when you stand in the right location, everything coincides and creates what appears to be a three-dimensional room. So in this slide, you see the QR codes on the wall, which you could scan with your phone, and they provided more information about that particular project. There were plans, drawings, and sometimes videos. And then the QR codes on the floor did the exact same information transfer while also indicating where you should stand, so that when you stood in that exact spot, you would experience the coming together of the disparate pieces, and it would create a room. This is an example of innovative use of QR codes in advertising for a Picasso exhibition at the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts. And it included 176 works from Picasso's personal collection. The Martin Agency helped develop the campaign. And this is an example at the Explorer Museum of Technology and Science in Frankfurt, Germany. And they have this enormous QR code that measures 5 by 5 meters on the exterior. So as long as there isn't a reflective surface over the code, then any device with a QR code reader can capture the information, can capture the image and link to the URL or whatever other information you're trying to transfer. MoMA in New York had an exhibition called Talk to Me, Design and the Communication Between People and Objects. And unfortunately, it's no longer up, but you can, if anyone is interested in the development of technology design and user interface, you can refer to the catalog or visit the website for the Talk to Me exhibition. One description I read from a New York Times article was that, quote, it was made for the texting, tweeting, social networking, app downloading, smartphone wielding museum goers, end quote. And I will add that it can be extended to the public at large who are increasingly comfortable with smartphones and apps. There were 194 works on display in the exhibition, and just to name a few, there was the Prayer Companion, seen above on the left. It was a ticker tape device with a very explicit purpose. It alerts the Poor Clare sisters who live at a monastery in York, the UK, to issues that need their prayers. Another object was the Baker tweet, seen in the middle of the screen. This small plain metal box is equipped with a dial, a button, and a screen interface, and it can send subscribers real-time notices on Twitter. And the system can be customized online every day to reflect what the bakers plan to make. And finally, on the right-hand side is walking papers, and in the far corner you can see far right corner you can see a QR code. And walking papers is an interface for digital mapping, one that makes it easier for the average person to add useful information about the city. Users select the places they wish to annotate and print out a map, which is tagged with a QR code that will link the map back to OpenStreetMap's database, and OpenStreetMap is a free and editable map of the world. They then go out to the streets, penciling in the data as they go, and the information is scanned and uploaded to the Walking Papers site and traced into OpenStreetMap. In this way, participants help detail maps of their own neighborhoods with useful eye-level data, restaurants, post office boxes, ATMs, without the expensive equipment or extensive knowledge of the technology. Although it was designed with the amateur mapper in mind, Walking Papers has proven useful in extraordinary situations, such as after the earthquake in Haiti in 2010, when the existing mapped infrastructure was largely destroyed and locating relief camps, hospitals, and other services was a vital task. Its usefulness in that context has endured. Data on the Walking Papers website shows that a year after the earthquake, maps of Haiti still accounted for almost 25% of the total uploads. Paola Antonelli, senior curator at MoMA and organizer of the Talk to Me exhibition, wrote a summary of contemporary interaction with technology that is particularly insightful and can be applied to this conference in general, so I thought I'd share a few lines. And she says, "The 21st century has begun as one of pan-communication, everything and everybody conveying content and meaning in all possible combinations, from one-on-one to everything on everybody. We now expect objects to communicate, a cultural shift made evident when we see children searching for buttons or sensors on a new object, even when the object has no batteries or plug. Talk to Me thrives on this important late 20th century development in the culture of design, which can be described as a shift from the centrality of function to that of meaning, and on the 21st century focus on the need to communicate in order to exist. From this new perspective, all objects occupy a unique position in material culture, and all of them contain information beyond their immediate use or appearance. A great deal of communicative experimentation takes place in cities, which, because of their density, are the perfect testing ground." Digital storytelling. So these three examples. On the left, MetaLab is a Harvard consortium that uses texting to communicate information from the landscape, and something called Augmented Harvard, composed of a network of physical artifacts that unlock site-specific experiences, and it allowed people to see otherwise invisible features of the campus landscape, such as long ago demolished structures, alternative architectural plans, and inaccessible archives as they wandered around campus. The initial release was planned in conjunction with 2 exhibitions in the fall. YY is an iPhone app, and it has 60 stories about 60 places in Rome. And the Museum of the Phantom City is another iPhone app, and it was designed by a husband and wife architecture team. And you can play where Buckminster Fuller Dome would have been, and why did that Battery Park Airport fail to materialize. Apple phone users can scout over 50 unbuilt architectural sites around the city with a feature that describes each proposed project through the architect's own notes. So, QR codes in archaeology. I found something online by an archaeologist in the US, William Kerr, to convince the archaeologists in the crowd today why QR codes are relevant. He writes, they are mysterious and demand action. Like an archaeological artifact, such as a shard of pottery, QR codes beg to be understood or contextualized. They demand action on the part of the viewer, or at least the viewer who recognizes a QR code as something to be deciphered. Just as an archaeologist is almost compelled to figure out the context for an artifact, people in the know feel compelled to scan and understand a QR code. Number 2, codes are objects. The form of a QR code communicates meaning. Like most archaeological objects, a QR code does not communicate in an explicitly textual way. Within the discourse of archaeology and presumably QR codeology, the form of the object prompts the action required to understand it. Number 3, they are mobile. Like many artifacts in an archaeological context, a QR code is mobile, meaning that there is tension between its present physical context and the meaning embedded by the code's creator in its form. And number 4, codes provide a link between the real and the virtual. The past is something that obeys particular rules and in a particular sense does not exist except within the imagination. And QR codes can bridge this gap between the virtual world of the internet and the physical world of the code itself. The real-world context of the code creates a physical point of departure into the virtual world of the internet. In short, the code locates the internet in physical space. So implementation of QR codes and other social media in underserved cultural heritage sites. So how can QR codes in particular be used to make archaeology relevant? Well, they're free. You can get one right now as I'm talking off the internet and download it. They're very easy to use and they can be fun. So we're almost at the end here. GLAM is a Wikipedia site, galleries, libraries, archives, and museums, and something else called Wiki Loves Monuments Worldwide. Those are two, I guess you would call them collaborations online, and since I'm not an archaeologist, I can't vouch for how much they're used or how relevant they can be, but I think as far as people like us who may, or the people in the crowd who aren't archaeologists who want to participate. The Wiki Loves Monuments project is an international photo contest for cultural heritage monuments that will be taking place in September. It was started in Holland and the Netherlands and in 2010, and last year it was organized on a European level, and this year in 2012 it's a global event. The basic concept is that people are invited to upload images of monumental objects under a free license for usage on Wikipedia. And it's actually a pretty extensive and great website, so I encourage you to take a look at it. Okay, so QR codes. I've spent a lot of time talking about them, and although I do think that they're wonderful and useful and they can be used to get information out to large amounts of people, I think that they possibly will be replaced at some point in the future by more sophisticated formats. This being said, what else is there? There are just a couple technologies. One is augmented reality, and the other is mobile visual search, which I think has a lot of potential. I'm just going to play the first minute of this kind of research video about what is going on. And David Chen is a researcher at Stanford University, and this will tell you what he's doing.
Hi, I would like to present our work regarding city-scale landmark identification on mobile devices. This is a joint collaboration between researchers at Stanford University, ETH Zurich, Nokia Research Center, and Navtech. First, here's a brief overview of how our system works. A user can go to any place in San Francisco and take a photo of a building or landmark with his or her mobile device. Our system will then automatically recognize the building shown in the query photo. For the automatic recognition, some query data is transmitted over a wireless network to a server. On the server resides a large database of images showing building facades that were previously captured using survey vehicles.
Okay, that's just, I know everybody already knows about facial recognition software and pattern recognition, but it hasn't been taken to the same level as having a repository of monuments or city buildings or anything to the extent of what they're trying to do here. So essentially, the idea is that you would eventually be able to use your cell phone in the same way and take a picture of something, and it would automatically bring you to more information. So that concludes the first part of my talk. And now I'll show a short, about 4.5-minute video that I created. My initial plan was that I came to Rome to participate in something called Social Media Week, in which I was starting to create a project about the 7 Hills of Rome, and actually Darius and I were going to do something together, but Rome pulled out of Social Media Week. So I developed this on my own, and I went with the original idea. If you actually have a cell phone, you can scan that QR code, and I have it printed out here too. And the idea was that I would put it on a location on the 7 Hills of Rome, and then it would actually take you to a video that explained the story about the 7 Hills of Rome and how they came about. Sorry, there's not supposed to be audio at this second, and I apologize for the, you can't read it very well, but that will be changed. It's just talking about the history, that the 7 Hills have a complicated story that's worth exploring and uncovering. Early sources talk about a festival called the Septimontium. This is where most scholars would agree that the grouping of the hills can be traced to. Opinions differ, however, on that history. The two words septi, meaning enclosed, and septum, meaning 7, both potentially describe the area containing the 7 hills.
Está lloviendo y yo no he visto llover la...
Ellers kan du også vinke med vores billetter for at spille en anden
Nu går det eddermame hurtigt. Da. Hold øje her. Pas på, pas på. Var det langt nu? This is funny. Aquí, Oscar, ven. Están todos con el papel. ¿Y Cristina? Ay.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.